Listening to a podcast is commonplace today, but what isn't is the opportunity to be among the first few to watch the live recording of an upcoming episode. Especially when it is a podcast that includes two thought leaders that average over 3 decades of experience to simplify key trends facing the HR and payroll industry. Evolve Beyond Borders is proud to introduce Pete Tiliokos and Julie Fernandez. Pete is an analyst, advisor, HR and payroll futurist, and the co-host and co-creator of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. Julie Fernandez is the global HR advisory leader at Heron Palmer, who is driven by her desire to make HR transformation and innovation actionable. Let's welcome Pete and Julie for the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast, live from Neeyamo's Evolve Beyond Borders in Atlanta.
To another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliokos, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. Excited to be here. And actually, today we're doing a first ever. We have others with us in the room, which is exciting. Usually it's you and I, and we're not even in the same room together.
I know, right? First time we have ever recorded this episode together, so I'm happy to be here with you. And thank you for all of you who are joining us both in the room. There's a lot of people here in Atlanta. And what we heard is 15,000 people in the audience. So, wow, no pressure.
Exciting. Exciting. Here we are, Atlanta Live. We are Atlanta Live.
Yes, we are. And what a great event, right? I've been calling this the World's Fair of HR and Payroll, right? Global HR and Payroll, I should say. So I don't know if, Catherine, you talked about maybe making a T-shirt out of that. I'd love to see that on the tagline next year. I think that's really what this is. The community that you've brought together and the thought leadership and the ideas and the concepts that are going to be talked about this week are just amazing, right? We've done these events for 4 or 5 years, not as a podcast,
yeah,
but individuals, and it's always been a great experience. How about you, Julie? What's your experience been, and what are you looking forward to today?
Same here. I think everyone gets this great technical experience from Neeyamo. You guys are really just so good at putting together the fresh look, and I always look forward to listening to the ones that I miss live. I love the chance to meet and work with other thought leaders, and I'm actually looking forward to a number of the breakout sessions, but I'm kind of a global geek, and so the ones that have the global flair for me are the ones that actually tug at my heartstrings, and I'll be watching first.
Yeah, awesome. And there are, right, we talked about the agenda, right, it's 2 packed days, today and tomorrow, 3 cities, Atlanta, London, Amsterdam. There's sessions going on just like this, and virtually, right, everyone is with us that way as well. 75 speakers this week across 48 sessions, not 400, 48 sessions that actually ends up being 24 hours and 20 minutes of content. That's incredible, right? I don't know where you can get that much bang for the buck. Learn so much, and all complimentary, right? I mean, everybody's welcome.
There's
so
bang
I
for
love
the
it.
buck.
Yeah.
It's awesome, Neeyamo.
Yes, but as Catherine told us at the kickoff, right, 15,000 attendees in 100 countries. Wow, I mean, amazing turnout. So just a testament to everything that the Neeyamo team has done for this week. So thank you very much. So look, let's maybe jump into the agenda a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about our sessions that we have coming up, and then we want to segue into some conversations around global workforce challenges, right, and the ways in which companies are solving those challenges and dealing with those as they come about. So,
Let me start.
What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me start. So I have a session that I think is happening tomorrow that is about payroll consolidation, specifically when you have multiple countries in your footprint. And I think a lot of clients are challenged with figuring out, is it worthwhile? Is this something I should be looking at? Am I too small? Am I too broad? Am I too big? And so we wanted to do something really unique this year, and I've worked with Neeyamo to come together to bring a workshop type of a format. And so what we have this year for you in my session is a diagnostic tool, and it will follow it through live to look at your consolidation features. You can follow along live in the tool if you prefer, or watch the content stream and then do it later. And as you walk through a series of 16 different questions that are simple to ask. You don't need to do research to figure it out. It will come to some conclusions and give you some suggestions about your own particular situation and whether payroll consolidation might be something that's worthwhile for you to explore. And it will diagnose a little bit your particular footprint and your situation. And then at the close of that, you'll be able to unlock a request for benchmark ranges. So a lot of times in order to think about doing anything or put anything into action, you might need some rough idea of what that could cost. And so at the close of that real-time diagnostic, you can unlock and jump into a tool that will allow you to enter just some very simple data elements for as many countries as you want. And my organization here in Palmer will turn around a benchmark report with some ranges that might help you, give you just the back of the napkin idea of what you might be looking at to take some action in that space.
Yeah, good
so
stuff.
That's my section.
Yeah, very hands-on, right? I love that. Very interactive. And, it's interesting that topic of consolidation continues to come up, right? Everybody wants that elusive, single, unified experience for their payroll control, central control center, central data, and the ability to really get to one single view, right? I see a lot of that in the deals that I've been around and worked on in the industry recently, where firms are looking out and trying to figure out how do we take this sort of mess that we have and bring it to something that is more consolidated and more efficient and modern. So
tell me about your session, Pete.
Yes, my session. So I'm going to be talking about agility, right? Org agility. I think it's the one thing that everyone is really you have to have it, right? It's the acumen that I think every business needs to be mastering, right? The ability to remain agile in the marketplace. Everything we know is volatility. It changes constantly, and you really have to be out in front of that stuff, right? And it's not just about pivoting. It's about really knowing when to pivot, where to pivot towards, and using the data and information and cues that you find from that information to help you guide your organization along that path. And a key part of that is human capital, right? Is payroll, is the ability for your HR operations to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of your workforce. And when you have that all kind of come together, you really do have a more agile, resilient organization that can pivot through these challenges and handle them. So that's my topic, and we're going to be digging into that tomorrow. So that will be available there. So awesome. Please do check that out.
Hey friends, Marnie Robbins here, host of Vibe Makers, a podcast now on the Work Defined Network. Look, we all know workplace culture doesn't come from a slide deck. Gross. It comes from people. So on Vibe Makers, I talk to the folks shaping the experience of work from the inside out. You know, the HR and people ops folk, founders, leaders, and misfits building culture through small bets, big beliefs, and a whole lot of trial and error. No fluff. Well, maybe a little fluff, but mainly just candid talk about what happens when you stop duct taping your culture together. Come check us out. Listen to Vibe Makers wherever you get your podcasts.
So, as you know, if you've listened to the show before, we generally talk about market updates. Obviously, our market update this week is the Neeyamo event, so we've kind of covered that. And then we normally get into a topic. And this week's topic is really the global marketplace, right? How do you compete? How do you maintain that competitive advantage and fundamentally stay agile and navigate through these times of challenge, right? The interesting thing is, I think that while there are more challenges than ever, and there are more organizations, even at a younger stage, finding themselves in a global marketplace and having to manage and cultivate a global workforce. The great news is, as we saw at the beginning of the presentation kicking off, there are a lot of levers, solutions that can help you be agile and remain ahead of those challenges and be able to have that workforce optimized and synergized to be able to help you perform and hit your strategic goals. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those capabilities today that people need to be looking at. And again, I think if you look at the common theme through many of these solutions that you're seeing come into the marketplace, they're very much agility-driven tools, right? They're there, or solutions. They're there to help you create more of that agility and help you be able to to make your goals a reality, right? Achieve your strategic path. So Julia, we're going to break this down into a couple pieces, right? Do you want to take us through some of this?
So another hallmark, or at least a personal goal for both Pete and I, has been to make sure that our content session starts to break things down and give some actionable, pieces of thought. And so today, fitting with that theme, we actually wanted to talk about global talent and the different markets that you can tap in the international talent space in order to increase your international presence and agility. So it doesn't matter whether you're boosting or expanding your headcount, or you're improving experience, or you're entering and exiting new countries that you haven't been into before. Maybe M&A is going on. You don't know where you're going to be, 3 months from now. To me, an important piece of information, knowing the players in the markets and the providers to share, is that there are different providers that are serving different parts of your international workforce. And some of them have overlapping positions and offerings, and it's really easy to get confused or sold to instead of getting a moment to step back and think about which populations am I dealing with, what am I trying to solve, what am I trying to do. And so you want to kind of avoid defining your strategy to fit, maybe a familiar provider is showing you their wares and, they have some offerings, but that doesn't mean that's all that there is in the market. So we have 4 discrete markets in international different offerings, and wanted to just differentiate and bring those forward to you a little bit today. The first one that I'll start with is global mobility. And so this used to be kind of the only thing that you would see when you were talking about international talent and international space. And the workforce, because which employees or which folks you're talking about is different sometimes in each of these markets, you're really talking about those special categories of workers that are expats, they're third country nationals, right? They're impats or assignees or whatever. And so this has been a very specialized niche space in HR for a long time. Usually there's a tiny team of folks, or a third party or with third parties that are focused on impats and expats and how to get them settled and what to do with that. And that's always been called global mobility. Yep. Some of the providers that are out there, just to give you an idea, Ernst & Young is really big in this space. A lot of times these providers are managing taxes and cost projections and those sorts of things. You have reload firms and moving firms, so you get the likes of the Grables or the Serva BGRS folks or the Cardises, and technologies. And Pete, I know you have a technology that you were calling out to me the other day that we should mention here in this particular segment.
Yeah, Topia. I'm a big fan of their global mobility platform. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all things global mobility. And there are, you're right, this is a topic that I think keeps coming up as you talk to different CHROs. This week we were talking before the show, right? The Davos, right? A lot of the content I'm seeing come out of that talking about global talent gaps, global workforce challenges, and the fact that you fundamentally have to go beyond your borders now to really staff and find that talent mix that is going to give you what you need to, the skills you need in order to achieve your goals. So a lot of these solutions are coming online and shaping, and many of them are in the form of services, but there are a few global mobility platforms that are out there I think are really interesting. And Topia would be one I would look at.
So as with most things, in any of those spaces, there are sometimes technologies and then there's sometimes a technology and service offering. The last thing I want to say before we leave global mobility is there's kind of a new pairing of buzzwords. Talent mobility is showing up an awful lot, or global mobility is showing up in a slightly different context. And as you're hearing it today, just listen, because this new term is now sometimes referring to the expansion or the idea of international posting and hiring and assignments, and being able to be more mobile and move your talent around in the organization, not just recruiting fresh new talent. So I suspect that we'll see a little bit of confusion with the terms global mobility or talent mobility popping up in a different context.
Sounds very agile.
Yeah, it sure does, right? There's only a finite number of buzzwords we can find.
I know, right? But it is, right? I think you can see the theme of agility, right? You've got to really be flexible. You've got to be willing to think outside the box today, right? Especially for talent. I was reading something just this week, again, from Davos, something about 54%, don't quote me on this, 50-ish% of some of the world's most educated populations come from 5 countries, and none of them are the U.S., right? It was like Brazil, Mexico, and a couple of other places. So there are tremendous talent pools, tremendous skill pools that are out there that can be tapped, and organizations are finding a lot of success by going outside their borders, right, and achieving the ability to create talent pipelines that are beyond their own borders, right? Exactly what we're talking about this week. and certainly giving companies the ability to get very agile and very creative in how they solve for their skills gaps. So.
Hello, this is Michael Vandervoort from the Drive Through HR podcast, where we discuss ideas, trends, and activities that impact HR, talent, HR technology, in the workplace. Our focus is on expanding knowledge and igniting curiosity as we hear directly from people who are shaping the future of the HR industry. Join us.
Hey, this is William Tinka. Listen, we did a series for iSolved called Heroes of HR, where we talk to HR practitioners. And these are just your run-of-the-mill, everyday, slogging it out, 300 employees in Cedar Rapids, HR pros. Mostly it's centered around iSolved and what they do with iSolved, but also they talk a lot about kind of the day-to-day rigor of HR. If you're curious about that, search for Heroes of HR wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
So why don't you take us to number 2, the second?
Yes. This is an area that very near to my heart. I did a lot of research on this a few years ago. I've written about it for 5+ years now. And that is the employer of record or the global PEO model, right? I would say global employer of record is probably a better way to describe it. A lot of times you'll get the PEO connotation, or the PEO wording kind of gives you the connotation of the U.S. model. It's similar, but it's not exactly a construct that is legal in every country outside the United States the way the United States operates it. So think of EOR, in my opinion, again, and if you look at my first report I wrote on this in 2020, I actually said it's the best kept secret in HR outsourcing that is purely a speed and agility enabler, right? It is the ability to rapidly move into a country, whether that's to accommodate the exact thing we were talking about, whether that's tapping into talent that you don't have, or accommodating an employee from a flexibility perspective. And that's a topic we could go completely on in how you maintain that employee longevity with them, is giving them the flexibility and autonomy to pick and choose and customize their workplace. But that's a different subject. But fundamentally, the ability to target a country and say, hey, we don't know anything about this country, but we see it as a growth path for our brand. The ability to step into that country very quickly and compliantly, let's underline that word, compliantly, is absolutely pivotal, right? When you're out there trying to execute and capitalize on those agility moments where you want to take advantage of a certain market. So I think what you see is Global EOR has created a compliance vehicle for companies to be able to employ those workers in foreign locations where they don't have familiarity or where they want to test a market, and not have to go through this big investment of lawyers and entities and infrastructure, and can kind of test the market or find out if it's viable and make sure that they're not that they haven't underestimated what they're doing there. So it's just another one of those agility tools you need in your battle bag, I guess you could say, to be able to go out there and solve situations and help you get over to where you're aiming to be from a strategic perspective.
Yeah, and a key differentiator here that a lot of people don't think about until they start to dive into the area is here you're finding and offering not for your employees, but for places where you haven't yet established yourself, right? So this isn't an employee or a workforce type of a value proposition. It's a proposition to get a footprint somewhere, and so you're specifically looking at a situation where you're tapping into employees that don't have to be your own. And so there are some unique folks in the market. I think we saw in Kathy's overview that Neeyamo is in this space. I know we usually toss out a number of different provider names as well, but these are different providers than global mobility providers who are focused on impats, expats, and so forth.
And I'll add, there are a number of sessions about this today. Brent Skinner from 360 Insights is going to be speaking on this. But also, I thought it was beautiful that Neeyamo has a panel of both their executives but also their competitors from this industry. And some of them are founders of these concepts and solutions and have been there from day one in this industry. I would really encourage you to be a part of that keynote and listen to that, because I'm amped, right? That's 5, I think, executives that are going to be on that from different organizations, Neeyamo and competitors. So be sure to get it in on that one. Okay,
That'll take us right into the third
takes us right into the next segue.
lever that you can pull in this international space, and that's global payroll. And so unlike the EOR space that we were just speaking about, with global payroll, you're looking at your own general population of employees in every country. So if you yourself have 30 employees in France, and you're trying to figure out how to handle payroll for your own employees and not necessarily the specialized employees from mobility or first segment, or not your employees in the EOR, you're just trying to figure out how do you do payroll and be compliant in however many countries you have around the world. And that's the global payroll segment. And that's a segment where we see, because it is payroll heavy, local compliance heavy, we really see a gross to net or a managed payroll type model as being predominant there.
Yeah.
And it's an area we've both come to know each other through.
Yes, global payroll. Wow. Listen, you know what I'll say about this? Global payroll, and I would say global. Let me back up. The term global payroll has gotten a little bit, I would say, blurred. Right? The EORs, right? A lot of these EOR organizations, employer of record firms, are coming online, and they're calling themselves payroll providers. And that's not exactly a payroll service. It's a payroll-heavy service, but it is not a payroll service, and it is not global payroll. And I would argue that you should look at both as solutions that can interact and work together and benefit each other. I would say that global payroll is probably where EOR leads to. If you're obviously successful and you want to stay in that country or you want to expand your footprint, it often leads to a long-tail need in a certain country or multiple countries, which is certainly where global payroll comes into play, right? Solving for your workers outside of your home country. But I think it's important to understand the difference, because global payroll is getting thrown around, I think, in a way that gives the idea that a lot of things that are being presented as global payroll solutions are really EOR solutions. And so be very careful about that. But I would tell you that what I love right now about global payroll, and I love about, right, we heard it in the Hyperloop discussion this morning. I love Neeyamo's Hyperloop concept. I think it's exactly where the market in the future is heading. I think we're living in what could be the golden age of payroll right now, right? We have finally gotten, executives and leaders and organizations treating payroll like it's important, like it should have always been treated, right? They're finally investing in payroll and seeing it as a lever, or a vehicle, not a lever, a vehicle for fundamentally delivering on the employee experience, for fundamentally holding the glue. It's the glue that holds the employee experience and the trust between employer and employer together. And at the end of the day, it should also be an asset. It should be a value-driving asset to your organization. And I love the modernization that's happening, and I think the resurgence of payroll has made its way to the global space. And more you're seeing companies really look at how they can modernize. And I think where you have to look at EOR is both opportunistic but also strategically, right? Use that to help you fill gaps where your global payroll is not gone yet, where you don't need global payroll yet, or where you have an opportunity to go and take advantage of an opportunity of growth for your organization. But using the two together, I think, is really important, and understanding how each one works and what they do is critical. And we could probably make an episode out of talking the difference of the two of those. But very important that you look at your global payroll operations in the context of how is it going to move our organizations towards a more agile, insight-driven group, and then how does EOR fit into that and help us achieve and solve specific point location challenges. So yeah, long-winded answer, but.
So discrete market, discrete providers that have that as their point of strength.
Hey, this is William Tincup, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Practitioner Corner podcast. It's a wonderful podcast about the journey, the paths of how practitioners, both HR and TA, kind of go from high school, college, all the way to where they are right now. Some of the things that they've learned, how they've been successful, people that thrive around them, etc. It's a fun podcast. You'll love it. You'll learn from it. Subscribe to it. Thanks.
Okay, let's keep this moving and on to market number 4, which is another area in international employees you might want to look at, and that is global rewards or global total rewards.
Yes.
Sometimes Ben Admin and brokerage, global Ben Admin and brokerage are caught up in this particular quadrant as well. And again, these are offerings and technologies and solutions that are oriented specifically toward your general population of employees in however many countries you operate in. And the idea here is, you're not just talking about the payroll portion, you're starting to talk about the benefits and rewards and things that you're doing to attract and retain talent. And so it probably should be no surprise that that's become a very important lever and gotten a lot of attention, especially from large employers these days, who are looking to not only retain talent and explain the value proposition and bring forward for their employees the value of all the different things that they do as an employer for them. And instead of total reward statements of where it was an annual piece of paper that you got, bring those things into a technology and make it more visible and interactive to employees so that they can value the proposition of their employment, but also as an attraction lever for hiring. And so where you see people or companies starting to explore lifestyle accounts or pet insurance and a lot of the voluntary benefits and just like a whole myriad of creativity and creative ideas are being tossed around by employers who are struggling with talent, who want to convey the value to retain talent and also to attract new talent. And there are players in the marketplace. A lot of them are large benefits players like the Aons and the WTWs and the Mercers. There are technology players like the Benify and the Darwin and others that are specifically best suited and well suited to help you look at total rewards and how you might do that better and get some greater value out of that. This after COVID has been, a race to do this has been pretty much a phenomena. And I would tell you that the two are different providers, different ecosystems. But I'm working with a large global client now that started down the total rewards path and was looking at total rewards. And in having conversations with them, we wanted to make sure that they understand that when you're talking about putting in a total rewards solution, you have an opportunity to have all of your rewards administration in one system or in one place. And that gives you a really unique opportunity to then have a single interface into one or a handful of global payroll providers, right? And so there are opportunities that play off of each other as you start to look and solve those challenges across your populations. And it was enough for them to, stop and say, oh, well, we're going to come out the end of this with a total reward solution globally. We can talk about equity, we can do all of that stuff, but we can also find a very efficient way to streamline putting that information and feeding that information to a world of payroll. And, that's the kind of magic and the kind of efficiencies and secret sauce that global employers are looking for.
Yeah, three things there I would say jump out at me when I think about what I've read about and researched and worked and interviewed customers around global rewards is the employee experience and the employee wellness, right? And the fact that there's wellness is way more than just their health, right? It's their mental health, it's their financial health, all of those things. And you're right. What I notice is the organizations are trying to do more to make the employee experience more robust, more flexible, and they are juggling a lot of different vendors in this bucket and needing help in getting all together. And the key thing that you said at the end that I love is integration, right? It has to be tightly tied to payroll, tightly tied to the employee experience, and I think that's where your modern payroll comes into play, right? You need that API-connected ecosystem to help all of these things flow back and forth from a data perspective, but most importantly, too, from that employee experience perspective. And you're right, this is an angsty area that a lot of companies are trying to figure out. How do we put together the best package that incites or incentivizes employees to come and connect to our brand and work for us? So, yeah, big challenge there.
So those are the four areas we wanted to make sure to call out today, because oftentimes folks come to us and start a conversation and might say, hey, I need to fix some stuff about my global footprint, and there are different populations served and different vehicles, different providers, altogether different ecosystems, depending on what it is you're trying to solve for. So we're hoping that's helpful.
Absolutely. You know, the whole agility piece of this, right? I think that's been a little bit of our theme here. The fact that you do have to get more agile as an organization. It's not if, it's you have to, right? It's a survival thing for some businesses, right? You can ask Blockbuster and Netflix, right? You know, you could go on and on. Uber, right? There are a number of disruptive things happening in the space, and I think right now, focusing on investing in your human capital, particularly, you know, we're hearing a lot of talk about economic downturn. Don't let up on taking care of your people, you know, re-engaging your talent that you have. You know, we've talked about on our last show, revisiting the honeymoon phase, because, you know, finding new talent is expensive, right? Keeping them in-house, and working with these solutions to figure out how they can help you, right? You don't have to do this alone. There's help. So, yeah.
It's so weird turning to look at you. I just have to say
I know.
And then it's so weird seeing people, and I'm like, I want to talk to you guys. Like, we really did try to figure out how can we have folks actually like participate in this thing, but we'll get that figured out for next year.
I know. And it is this is a little bit of a compressed episode. I feel like we're presenting more than conversating, but look, we hopefully you've enjoyed this. I know we're coming to the end of our time, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining the event, and thank you to Neeyamo for having us. Thank you for even hosting this event. This is so amazing. Look for a blog on this very topic. We're going to do a better job maybe of summarizing it, a little bit more detail. Julie will be having that coming soon. And as always, right, you can engage with the show on any of the platforms that you follow your podcasts on. HR and Payroll 2.0 is where we are out there. And you can follow us on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. At HR Payroll 2_O is our Twitter feed. And you can always find Julie and I as well. And thank you so much for having us. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for meeting me in person for an episode, Julie.
It's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys next time.